In order to understand what I'm about to say, please pay attention to this history lesson I'm about to tell you guys. You see, the Nazis wasted a lot of their resources in the Battle of Stalingrad and in the Battle of Kursk. They lost a lot of manpower in the Battle of Stalingrad, and they lost a lot of tanks and artillery in the Battle of Kursk. And the few ammunitions left, they decided to waste them in Western Front, right? Anybody who has read the history of World War II, you know the D-Day. America, together with, Western European countries, invaded German positions, which is popularly known as the Western Front, right? So when the Red Army got to Berlin, there was nothing left to defend Berlin. So in desperate attempt by the Nazis to defend Berlin, even kids at the age of 15, at the age of 12, were given guns to defend Berlin. Some of them were not in uniforms. Some of them, it was basically operation wear whatever you want to defend the city of Berlin. That is how the whole operation was. This is exactly the position that the Ukrainian armed forces has gotten to. Remember, in my last Kursk update, I hope you guys remember, I told you guys that the Ukrainian counter-offensive, some soldiers were wearing civilian clothing. They were not dressed up properly. And clearly, this is a desperate attempt. Just like what we saw the Nazis doing in World War II, in the Battle of Berlin. Now, there is video evidence of Russian forces. They caught 2 Ukrainian soldiers who are not dressed in uniform, exactly what I told you guys. And these soldiers, these Ukrainian soldiers, are going around the city of Pokrovsk, these residence buildings, and they are taking belongings, right? They are basically, the proper word to use here is stealing. That is what they are basically doing. Watch the video.
Сколько вас? Сколько вас? Сколько вас?
Двое.
Вы ВСУшники?
Нас сюда кинули, да, мы штрафники.
Вы ВСУшники?
Да, бросили.
Где ваше оружие?
Здесь, в квартире.
Где?
Здесь. Здесь.
Есть. Забирай. 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 Кроме рюкзаков, автоматов ничего не было?
Нет, нет. А это квартиры, какой военный? Квартиры.
Это вам нужно. DVD, кассеты.
Где это? Давно я не знаю, или работает. Вот так.
Ну, это фильмы про Афганистан, про Чечню. 9-я рота, афганский блокпост, война.
Нашел.
Караван, семиминутный марш-бросок. Зачем вам это все нужно?
Шуба, может, когда-то посмотрю, если будет.
Шуба. Давай. Что, золото собираешь?
Это не золото.
А что, а зачем ты это кольцо в рюкзаке таскаешь, забрал?
Это я его пилял, это не золото. Это не золото.
Вот сейчас вы в плену. У нас, у русских.
В плену.
You see, they were trying to outsmart the Russian soldiers by hiding their weapons and their backpack, and they disguised themselves as civilians. But unfortunate for them, they couldn't get away with it. When you see an army using such desperate tactics, knows that it is over for that particular army. I just gave you guys clear example of the Nazis regime in Germany. By the way, this is purely against Geneva Convention rules. An army or a soldier, you are not supposed to dress in civilian attire. It is absolutely against Geneva Convention rules. So what these 2 Ukrainian soldiers did right now, it is war crime. Are you aware of that? This is pure war crime. But the whole point is these guys are desperate. They are just throwing in untrained soldiers. They are throwing in a lot of people to go in and defend Pokrovsk and Kyiv, which is a desperate move, which is going to destroy all these young men. Clearly, these guys are not well trained. Look at the difference in dressing between the Ukrainian soldiers and the Russian soldiers. Just look at that, and it will confirm who is struggling here. The dressing alone should confirm that, look, these guys are desperate. One thing I've also realized about the Russian army is whenever they surround Ukrainian forces, you don't see them rushing to take, anything. They take their time because they know very well that supply will be impossible for them, and sooner or later, definitely, they'll run out of ammo and they will surrender unconditionally. I am fortunate enough to have access to real battlefield actions. I wish I can put some of them here, but it is absolutely against YouTube rules, especially when my channel is this young. I have to build trust before I can put such videos here. As a human being, when you start seeing what is happening to Ukrainians, in fact, it's horrifying. When I see them, I become sad. Regardless whoever you support in this world, these are real human beings who are being killed on a daily basis. The politicians who are instigating this war are not on the battlefield fighting. These guys are sitting in their offices, drinking tea. They don't care about the ordinary people who dies on the battlefield. Who was going to attack Ukraine? That is the real question we should ask here. I keep asking myself, why did this war even start in the first place? Nobody was a threat to Ukraine before this war started. What was Western Europe going to gain from Ukraine? EU membership or NATO membership? I mean, let's be clear here. If Ukraine joins NATO today, how is that going to benefit Ukraine? The ordinary Ukrainian, I want to know, who is your enemy? Who hates you? Nobody hates you. By the way, I want you to listen to this video carefully before we talk about it.
2014, nobody was talking about doing this to Ukraine.
Nobody knew where Ukraine was.
In other words, Ukraine could have survived as an intact 50 million people nation in Europe, whose economy is one of the most, could have been one of the richest countries in Europe. It's got enormous leftover Soviet sort of industrial complex, economic complex that could have been reworked and remodeled and remodified to fit the modernity, the modern economic development of today's West. But no. So in other words, the point being, yeah, there was no need or necessity or some sort of a strategic threat emanating out of Moscow that was going to present an existential threat to America's allies, the European continent, or Washington. That's why I said this is what happened in the peacetime, and that's what's ironic and that's what's tragic about it. Looking back at America's history, this is the country that cannot tolerate, cannot stand a potential rise of any hegemon. But forget hegemony. This was just also a visceral hatred of Moscow, of Russia. Perhaps even, I don't want to be all, ethno-racist here, but even it was a hatred of the Slavic world, perhaps.
Who is this guy? I don't know him. If you know him, let me know down in the comment section. I just came across his video, and this guy is making 5 billion sense, 5 billion% sense. The guy is making a lot of sense here. Nobody was a threat to Ukraine. Before 2014, nobody was talking about invading Ukraine. Ukraine enjoyed more than any other country in the USSR. Even to think about Russia invading Ukraine is absolutely madness, because there was no way that Russia had any intention of invading Ukraine, if not for this whole NATO membership thing. If not for Ukraine allowing themselves to be a pawn in this geopolitical game that, the Western Russia is playing. In fact, Ukraine had more factories, more than any USSR country. Are you aware of that? After the collapse of the USSR, Ukraine had more factories, even more than Russia. If Ukraine had gone through the right path to modernize these factories, Ukraine would have been the richest country in the whole of Europe. Russia, took Ukraine as their darling baby. They enjoyed some certain privileges that other USSR countries never enjoyed. They never had such opportunity. After the collapse of the USSR, Ukraine was given nuclear weapons. How many countries in the USSR was given nuclear weapons? Even Belarus, who today we see as the #1 ally of Russia, they were not given nuclear weapons. Don't forget that it is because of this Russia-Ukraine war that Russia decided to deploy nuclear weapons to Belarus. Belarus had no nuclear weapons. To think that Russia hates Ukraine is absolutely insane. If you want to continue seeing me creating these videos, then please hit on the like button. You know, one painful thing is when you don't see progress, it is impossible for you to continue doing this because it takes a lot of time, a lot of energy, a lot of research for me to give this update. So if the platform don't grow, it becomes very frustrating. So please hit on the like button, and if you're new to the channel, subscribe. You know, when I was watching the video, when he said they hate the Slavs, I was a bit confused, to be honest with you. But when I sat down and I rethink about the history of Russia with the West, it is a fact. It's not just about Russia, but the Slavs. Look at what happened in Yugoslavia. Remember the Yugoslavia war? Remember what they did to Serbia? Even dating all the way back to Peter the Great era. Look at the war between Russia and Sweden. Many of you don't know this, but Sweden used to be a great power in Europe. And today, just that they don't want to get involved in this whole geopolitical war games, they help behind the curtains. They don't just want to come forward, but they have a lot of weapons. Even when you go back to the era of Catherine the Great, Catherine the Great was having a problem with the Turks, the Ottoman Empire. This was a war between Russia and Turkey. Quickly, the British decided to jump in. It is known as the first most technologically advanced war, the war between the Ottoman Empire and Russia. That is the second Crimea War, right? That was the first time that modern weapons we see today, you know, we first saw it on the battlefield. This was the first war ever to be documented in terms of videography, right? So pictures straight from the front lines were sent to the British citizens. So the point here is there have been multiple attempts by these guys to destroy the Slavs. And I am shocked that the Ukrainians don't realize this. They are paying the consequences. It is not Western Europe that is paying the consequences. I believe Ukraine has not learned their lesson. This is not the first time that the Ukrainians are fighting against the Russians. In Second World War, they fought against the Russians, but they were defeated. It sounds very confusing when I say this. Some people are always like, recheck history. Ukraine was part of the USSR. I know they were part of the USSR, but there was part of Ukraine, mainly the ethnic Ukrainians, were supporting the Nazis. Are you aware that even in Operation Barbarossa, when the Nazis invaded the Russians with close to 4 million men, are you aware that ethnic Ukrainians gathered on streets and they were clapping for the Nazis because they thought Hitler will defeat the Russians, then they will be free from being part of Russia or the Soviet Union. Have you heard the name Stepan Bandera before? Yes. Make research about Stepan Bandera and what he did against the Soviet Union. This Stepan Bandera guy, together with ethnic Ukrainians, unalived a lot of Poland citizens for no reason in Second World War. And that is why Poland and the Ukrainians are mortal enemies. Thanks to Russia, today we see enemies uniting. But up to date, those who know history, that is why today you see Poles demonstrating on streets. Yesterday, remember in my yesterday's update, I showed you guys video of Poland citizens demonstrating on the street that they don't want to die for the Ukrainians. Part of the reason is what the Ukrainians did to them in Second World War. Important update. A rebellion is about to happen, and it's all about this whole corruption case in Ukraine. Remember in my Ukraine corruption update, I told you guys that I see the Russians infiltrating Ukraine political system. They are going to take advantage of this whole thing and incite the Ukrainians against their own president. Now, this rebellion is not coming from outside. This is coming from within Zelensky's own political party. Remember yesterday's update, I told you guys that Volodymyr Zelensky, after this whole corruption incident, his popularity has dropped completely to 20%. And his own political party realized that if he runs for re-election, he's not going to win. It's a fact. By the way, Volodymyr Zelensky has shown interest that he wants to contest for the Ukrainian presidency. But looking at what is going on, something interesting is about to happen. Remember, when the war began, a lot of people were asking me, why is Putin not taking Zelensky out? People were asking, why is Putin not doing what America did to Saddam Hussein? And I said, look, I don't believe Putin is going to touch Zelensky. I believe that Zelensky, his own people, are going to kick him out of office. I see a lot of similarities between South Vietnam president during the Vietnam War, Ngo Dinh Diem. The point here is, when America was locked up in the Vietnam War, they brought this Ngo Dinh Diem guy to Washington. He was celebrated as a hero right after he got back to South Vietnam. In fact, Uncle Sam decided to kick him out of office. It's a fact. You can check history. Let me help you understand why defeating Putin is absolutely impossible. Vladimir Putin compared his government to Catherine the Great and Peter the Great. Now, one thing I observe or learned about Peter the Great is, whenever he fails in any war, he goes back, re-strategize, and come back. And when he come back, you cannot defeat him. Remember in 2014, if Putin had wanted, he would have started this war back in 2014. But he's very patient and a smart guy. He knew the consequences that will come along that invasion. And that is why it kept him so long. He prepared the Russian economy ahead of time. He decided to prepare his army. Thanks for your endless support. I really appreciate everybody's effort. If you watch this video till the very end, let me know where you are watching this video from. The city, country, let me know down in the comment section. This will help me know those of you who watch my videos till the end. Shalom. See you guys in the next episode.